Okay, we're good.
Recording?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order with the first order of business, comments from public related to items on the agenda. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
There's one citizen on Zoom.
Yeah, he's at work. I think he's just listening. Hearing no citizens, we'll move on to approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we got the safety share.
I'm thinking windshield washer fluid.
Oh.
Why do you think I think that?
You ran out and
I
your,
ran
and your,
out.
and your windows were a mess. You couldn't see.
How many here have windshield washer solution
Fluid solution.
at home?
No.
No. You do?
Look.
You do? Look at that. You do?
Yeah, but there's a quick trip right down the road, so.
And you get it when you fill up. No, but that's, at least you do that. And that's, one of the things that we, not only do we have to look out for our well-being, but it
You
just,
gotta be able to see.
yeah.
Yeah.
And always at the most inopportune time,
So it's not a constant flow that comes in and just creates itself.
Yeah,
You have to fill it up. Who knew?
so
Every oil change goes, it's all topped off, so.
Yeah, right.
I never run out. I don't use the whole bucket.
evidently my daughter runs out because she's always taking mine. I never have any left. But so far, the only time I get mine filled up is I get my oil changed and it seems to last that long. I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. I leave them very sheltered. Like, is there anything anybody else wants to throw out for safety? Because that's the only thing that got to me. And I thought it was kind of hilarious. Windshield washer fluid, that's a different topic.
Yeah, it is. And
Oh.
I would go so far as to say it always runs out when it's wet, slushy snow that you can't get off your windshield. But I want to reiterate what Karen said, particularly with us going in and out of the snow, slop, rain, ice period. Be careful when you're walking on those stripes because those happen to be a little slippery. Not to say that the rest of it isn't.
She's right, those yellow stripes they're supposed to be pathways or in between handicapped, that is slick paint. I don't know why they made it that way.
And it never fails. You're always in a hurry when it happens.
Yep.
Well, we're in luck here because you can't even see the stripe from the parking lot, so. I've been trying to get that stripe for 2 years. That's a safety concern, really, because you can't see the crosswalks, you can't see the stalls to park. And the highway department continues to say they're gonna do it, and you can see 2 years later, it's still not done. So hopefully we can get that taken care of this year so that, it's really hard to see where you park in a parking lot. You can hardly see the lines anymore. And the handicaps you can hardly see, and the crosswalks you can't see, so it's
So
like,
can you put sand in the yellow paint?
they could use glass beads. if you
Glass
wanted to.
beads that we use?
That's what they use on the main roads,
Okay.
so it gives it more of a reflective at night.
Well, not reflective, I'm talking about so it's not so slick.
Yeah, it would work. the
That would
same,
just
like
work
the
the same.
sand, just a little glass bead.
So there you have it. Safety in a nutshell. Or a bottle.
Get your fluids.
Next, we'll let chairman's report. I guess all I have is the wage study's done. It's gonna be presented to the county board to vote on Tuesday night. The way it's written now, I will support it. There's a couple things in there I think need to be amended or changed, and anybody's got any questions, feel free to talk to Mark Aback or contact one of us and we can look into whatever your concerns are.
So I'm going to ask a question. What were your concerns?
Well, Parkview is staying at 15.31 an hour. I just think that we got seasonals getting 16. I don't think that they're dealing with our elderly residents, that's basically a hard, stressful job, and I don't believe that they should be at least over 16. Everybody should make more than a seasonal worker. And you can only spend the money you have in your pocket. Doesn't matter that a lot of them are young. They're still they can stay under parents' health insurance till they're 27. So they're not even taking the benefits of health insurance from us. And yet we're only paying them $15.31 an hour. And you go to Menards, it starts out at 16 and a quarter. We basically got a 165 bed nursing home with 96 residents because we have no staff to fill the beds. You can't put somebody in there if you have no staff. So that's going to continue to decline. And pretty soon the nursing home, they're going to tell us that it's going to be too costly to keep it. They're going to want to sell it. So we have to correct that problem. We built a training center that so far has trained 3 people. And it was supposed to be where you hired a hospitality aide, they'd work for 3 days and then they'd be trained for 2 days. And then they'd sign an agreement to work for us for 2 years after they got their certification. Well, that kind of, when we lost the director, went out of the program. You know, I don't think it's being followed through. But I can't support a wage study that takes $2 million and the lowest paid people we have in this county, we give nothing to it.
But the upper ones,
That's unjust.
Yeah,
So I will not vote for that unless those basically hospitality aid, food service, and there's one other one, come up to at least $16 an hour.
And those are all at Parkview, those three sections?
I believe they are. I think there's one even below Parkview. I don't want anybody in the county working for less than we pay our seasonals. And if I talked to Mike, I met with him for an hour and 15 minutes and he wasn't really too keen on doing that. So I guess if somebody amends it from the floor, I'll vote for it. If they don't, I won't.
Well, thank you very much, because getting this information helps me make my decision, doesn't it, Steve?
Well, you were in the medical field. You know how important it is when you want to release somebody and they need to go to a nursing home for rehab and they got no place to go. I had a lady call me up basically in tears, like 3 different times because she couldn't get to a nursing home in Oshkosh. And she goes, I worked at Parkview for 30 years and you got open beds. Why can't I get there? I said, well, because got nobody to take care of you. You might as well go home. You know, you can go and sit in that room with it. There's no CNA, no RN, nobody to feed you. So we don't have any staff. And since I've got on the personnel and finance committee, it's only went down. When I got on there, we had 129 residents. Now we're down to 96. So in 3 years, we went nowhere but backwards. And the trend's got to stop. And if we have to pay more money to get people to do that job, then that's what we have to do.
Now, I did speak with a friend who has a daughter or a child over at Parkview. And she said that she had received a letter stating that they were going to have green carded people coming to potentially work there. And so I asked about that and heard that indeed there was Filipino people were going to be addressed and asked to come. And the problem was the next step, housing.
The third one. So that's
And
where the
so
hope is.
what do we do for housing for people who are willing to work there?
But yeah, I heard the same thing. I checked into it. It is true, but there's no housing for them. So what do we do in the meantime? Our residents don't have no place to go. Some of them are going to other counties and you know how hard that is for the family, you know, and if you don't have people visiting your friends, it's pretty depressing when you're basically recovering from something and you have no company and you just sit there all day by yourself. And a lot of older people, they don't have driver's license, you know, they could take a Uber or a bus. But if you have to go to another county, it's just too far for people to travel, you know.
Sure.
So it's something we gotta address, and if we don't address it in the wage study now, it's never gonna get addressed. So unless they change that, my vote's no.
Thank you. I appreciate your input.
Thank you. That's all I got. Next, we'll move on to the UW Extension Program Educator Report. And Tom's gone, so.
Todd is out sick. His family had a bug go through, so just a couple of things I handed out on his behalf, two handouts that he would have shared. I'm just gonna cover some highlights and we'll have Todd, we'll get Todd on an upcoming agenda so that you can ask some of the deeper questions. The bulleted list is our Todd's activities in the different categories that his work would fall under, including Rent Smart and evictions, the eviction task force. He included some up-to-date statistics there. One of the things that Todd has been working quite a bit on is the last one, the impacted by legal system audiences. So one of the things is there is Todd was one of the lead individuals. He worked with some other colleagues to create a re-entry ready program. So these were individuals who are in correctional facilities, or the target audience is individuals that are in correctional facilities that are nearing release, and a number of them have been incarcerated for a number of years. and they need to have some reorientation, especially related to like financial systems and financial practices. Todd has shared with me in conversations that, you know, there are some individuals that have been incarcerated for so long that if they had cell phones, they were flip phones prior to, that's their experience. So that even to learning how, you know, thinking about the banking industry and how it has shifted and, you know, to increased use of technology, not only for convenience, but also for security. So, you know, those types of things. So Todd has been piloting that. He just completed his first series at OCI, Oshkosh Correctional. So it's a multi-part series, and then the individuals will then have presented with certificates that they could utilize, you know, upon their transition into the daily life, and can help communicate that with at least it's a conversation starter with, you know, financial institutions or other key partners. So the other piece that's really cool about that is there are on a similar scale, Todd has been able to make some connections now that we can really tell COVID is done, and the county, working within the county jail as part of him providing financial education with those individuals who are in our Winnebago County Jail. So not just OCI, but also the Winnebago County Jail. So reaching those populations who, in many cases, are very receptive and willing to utilize the material that they get to, you know, try upon release to be able to positively impact their lives. So one of the things that also is the support is Todd is a certified financial coach, or he's gone through training to facilitate financial coaching. He included a one-pager that includes, you see the state, it has the state of Wisconsin with the UW logo on it. The green counties, so the map includes a list of green counties, and some of you may not actually, hopefully you just know your Wisconsin geography and you don't actually, because you can't actually read those names. But one of those things is that those are individuals that are extension professionals that are trained in financial coaching. And I believe I said counseling first, and that's a whole different, that's a totally different thing. Financial coaching, I apologize for that misspeak. So these are individuals in the aggregate of all of the financial coaching, kind of this is the summary statewide. And you can see that, you know, the almost $30,000 clients added almost $30,000 to their savings. Now that's aggregate. That's not one individual or situation. And then statewide, in addition to that, it added to savings, there was over $40,000 that was utilized to pay down debts. So the snapshot is, and you can see we're talking with a smaller number, and the reason these are not broken out specifically by Winnebago County data, the sample size is too small at this point. So releasing it, separating out the data and putting it into a public report could identify the individuals with such a small sample size. So this is one of those ones where the financial coaching is a very important tool. It may not impact huge numbers of people, but it impacts very deeply those that have the opportunity to participate in financial coaching. So Todd mostly works with partner agencies that provide referrals that he's already worked with and said, hey, here's a program. So as you can see his note, he has a participant that was referred by Veteran Services. So with that partnership, he's also had the opportunity to engage with some financial coaching sessions with individuals who are utilizing COTS services. So individuals that are transitioning or may not have stable housing that are utilizing COTS, and some financial coaching would help them become more financially stable to then provide them more opportunities for housing. So I just wanted to share that, and I know the basics of financial coaching. I don't know the drill down. So if you ask me a bunch of questions, I probably would have to say we'll have to wait until Todd. Those are just a couple of things that I had said that I would highlight, or that Todd and I, when we communicated, he wanted me to point out a little bit. You can also see that the family engagement and relationships, he has a couple of pieces: strong couples, positive parenting, and he's also working with Sandy Bell, who is our grandparents raising grandchildren program coordinator, to get back. We're the next big task. So right before the pandemic, with the grandparents, so that group has monthly meetings, or in the past, or prior to the pandemic, they would have monthly face-to-face meetings in which childcare was provided. And there were already some concerns, or some more appropriate ways to arrange childcare, or to make sure how they were screened, and make sure that they were capable, or was appropriate for the audience. Those conversations were happening, and then COVID hit, and then it was a moot point for a while. And now that we're finally back full swing, we now need to dust that folder off, so to speak, and then review what is the best and the most appropriate way to provide childcare that ensures the safety of both the providers and the youth and families involved. So that's something that we're working on.
Quick question, that is, I see several of these counties that have a star. Does that mean that they are working with one of the green counties?
So I believe, if I remember the map correctly, they have individuals who, I don't know if they have the financial coaching certification, or they have an individual, and I'm looking at it, that in which financial security is a secondary program affiliation. So, and in fact, I know, because looking at the map for Outagamie and Wapaka counties, because I just hired those two individuals, they have financial security as a secondary focus. So the expectations that they're going to provide financial coaching there isn't as strong of an expectation, because it's not the primary part of their role. But they're providing financial security education in other ways. For example, Rent Smart is one that Todd does. That's a very strong statewide network, and Todd's part of that team. And then the Planning Ahead curriculum. Planning Ahead is something that actually all three of so Todd, Tiffany, and Katie, so those are the human development relationships educators in the three counties that I oversee, that I work with. They have already had some conversations about where are some ways that they could create like 3 county cohorts, partnerships of, because Katie is strong in some areas, Todd is strong in some areas, and Tiffany is a newer extension professional, but she has some strengths and she's developing them. So are there some ways that they can work together to maximize their reach, but still have strong extension programming? So that's where the stars are, is they're individuals that have a secondary focus in financial security, but would not have that same level of expectation of the coaching.
I just think being financially savvy is lacking hugely in our country, and it just needs to be addressed. I also noticed that Brown County doesn't have anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they're staffed right now. I'll be honest. One of the things I will say though, and I'm going to speak to the within the 3 county group that I'm the most familiar with.
Sure.
So there are it's very interesting. The demographics and the population estimates are showing that as the three counties as a whole are not getting any younger, right? So we have our population of 50 or 55 plus, and that group is going to continue to grow. Some of those individuals who are able to are moving for whether they be family, climate, or health reasons. So there are some, but otherwise that group is going to continue to grow, and we're living longer. So as a whole, so then that group is going to continue to grow. So the combination, it's very intentional that in Wapaka and Outagamie counties that we hired lifespan and financial security educators because there's a growing population. And Kay, I totally agree with your observation. Those are also individuals that might be targeted for scams, have transitions. That's what planning ahead is planning ahead for transitions from workforce to fixed income or regulated income or retirement type things. All those other things that you're transitioning, which lead to the need for financial education to learn how for families and individuals to learn how to navigate. So that's intentional that those two are paired together, lifespan and financial security, because yes, financial security impacts everyone, and the lifespan, that aging population is growing at an increasing rate, and they have strong need for the same education. So it provides a kind of I don't want to say a double dip, but that is the phrase that's coming to mind.
Sure, and one of the things that I've just written down, and I'm trying to write things down these days, so I'm not so wordy, is financial literacy to me is as important, if not more so, than computer or IT literacy. And I think that we don't think in terms of literacy going into all of these different realms. It's kind of reading is literacy, isn't it?
Yeah. And one of the things that I did is Todd is part of with a couple of initiatives. Money Smart Week is a national week that is focused. It provides, it's kind of like whatever the focus. I mean, financial literacy for youth audiences is important year round, but they focus on 1 week and have some kickoff and initiative, special initiatives. And that's where the Youth Forward Wisconsin Children's Savings Account item is. Basically, the research shows that even if a youth has $5 a month put into a savings account, starting at whatever age, they will be more likely, the likelihood that they will attend post-secondary education of any type, the likely increases greatly, because they will have even a small amount of money in savings that they are able to use for education will help them or enable them, give them a positive, like, hey, I've got something to be able to go into it instead of this overwhelming fear of how to pay for it and potential debt.
And it compounds. If they start at a young age, it starts to compound. And now you're not looking at $1,000,
Right.
you're looking at $2,000 because it's compounded.
So fully understood. So many of the things that Todd and the other financial security educators are working with adult audiences, but they do recognize of working with youth audiences to create that foundation of financial literacy, so that hopefully to prevent some of those financial, or reduce the amount of financial struggles that individuals have.
The only thing is you can lead a horse to water.
Right, and yes, and that's where the goal of extension is to provide research-based or evidence-based information in a way that individuals can understand and use. They're still the ones that have to use it.
And that begs of my second problem I'm having in my head is that, computers aren't the end all to everything. And we just said, everybody's getting older. I know that I'm not as good at computers as I used to be when I was younger, but computers have gotten more complicated than when I am. So we have a situation, and this is in my head, where we've got all these good things. But how do we get them to the people that need them? And this is throughout everything, not only an extension, but everything else we're dealing with. I mean, people are complaining they don't have this and they don't have that, but it's out there. You just gotta find it.
Right.
How do you find it? I mean, I tried looking at the Winnebago County website to find where my picture is.
Mhm.
And I still haven't found it yet. I know it's in there somewhere.
I've seen it.
I've seen it.
I've
I
seen
saw it
it.
this morning.
Yeah, so I mean, that's.
Checking you out.
No, I was looking for something else.
And and then
Right.
we're getting less, like you're saying. I think I saw something the board gave us that I think we were gonna have more deaths this year in Wisconsin than births. So
Mhm.
it's changing the whole
Yep.
dramatic, but everything that we do in this committee is pretty much, it's reactive, but you are looking ahead, right?
Yeah, so one of the things, so here is, and I'll speak to what to one of our extension approaches, and this is something that Dana and Sarah both do, and Todd does. So as far as the how do we reach? So, Todd and our staff, they proactively are part of, networks, and, through networking, collaboration. So for example, meeting with veteran services and saying, hey, here are the things. And then they are able to help whatever method is the best for their audience, whether it be email, hard copy, social media, then they get the information out. Working with, the eviction task force and the partners there, okay, this would be appropriate. And then, working with them to help get the information out. So that's one of those strategies that work well for us. And in many cases, our own social media is not necessarily the go-to for the public, but we have such strong connections with partners that they help disseminate and get and reach where people are at. So that's one. I would say the best example of proactive is our planning ahead, the planning ahead series. So because that not only involves, so that's planning ahead for individuals and their families, preparing for those transitions that are those aging or those transitions that occur with, when you age and go from workforce or go from, one type of, I guess, retirement or insurance or whatever it might be, or housing. It intentionally involves the family members as well. So that's the proactive piece, instead of, oh, it's too late. Let's talk about these things now because we know they're coming, right? And there are different ways. That group has had success in both formats, using face-to-face format. And actually there's technically three formats. The face-to-face format, there have been successful online webinars. And then there is a group that is, they're not finished yet and don't have the evaluation, but they've tried some hybrid where they've had some online sessions and then the group has gotten together, and that has worked, so they meet the needs of the audience where they're at.
So to follow up with you, Tom, I have found it oftentimes very difficult to look for things, not necessarily on the county website, but I talked with someone yesterday who didn't know what the UW extension was. And so, and before I got on the county board involved, huge question. No, now I don't want to ever not be aware of what's going on. But until you actually take that step and move forward, you're clueless. You're clueless as to what's out there and available. So I guess it's just making
Human
sure
nature.
that we all go out and talk about you, because like I say, yesterday, some UW extension, what did they do? Well, 4-H. Oh, they do. Master gardeners? Oh, they do? So it
You could
really is.
take, excuse me, you could take that on to the whole county government thing, all your HR people or human resources. Is that HU, human resources? HR.
HR.
I was thinking computers and that wasn't right. It's not easy being retired. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff where you have to educate someone, but how do you do that? How do you do that? That's the $1 million question, really.
I just got one question.
Yeah.
Like on 100% for Walworth County, they get $500 on completion. What's the, so that's their completion versus say like a county that doesn't give the $500, do they have?
I guess that would be a question we would put towards Todd. Because I'm not sure how how the Walworth County program is structured. So to be able to compare and contrast that, I wouldn't be able to give you a good answer, but we can find one for you.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if you have $500 when you complete it, if you're one or two steps away, you're probably gonna finish it, where, you know, if you get nothing for completing it.
Right.
You might just think, well, it's kind of really not very much, I'll just drop all it, you know?
Right.
But when you put a $500 there for the 2 more sessions, well,
Yep.
they might think,
Yep.
well, it's worth finishing it, you know?
That's budget to come out with.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. That would be where we would want to ask Todd a little bit more for how that program works, because it is intriguing. I mean, you're right, Steve. You bring up a good point about incentive for completion. That I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Would I do my? I mean, I'm getting phone calls and emails to complete my health assessment for the insurance provider, and if there wasn't $150 associated with it, I probably wouldn't do it. All that. So, I mean, I'm just representing probably a lot of other people. You know, so you're right. Money does talk a little bit. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Good job, Todd.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, Todd will probably watch, if he watches it, he'll probably go, oh, no, that wasn't right. So he can do a rebuttal.
Okay.
There we go. Moving on to the extension administration department report with Chris.
Yep, I have a handful of updates for you. Most of it is relating to, a lot of staffing. We mentioned the last time we met, gave some highlights, so I have some updates. So one of the big pieces of news is Jody Bizayo has accepted a new role in Land and Water. So she's actually stepping up into a new role. Mary had retired or is retiring at the end of the month, so Jody's going to step into that role. So we're very appreciative of all of the contributions that Jody has provided. We're happy that she's just down the hall, so that if there is something like, oh, Jody knows that, then we can actually go ask her. Her last day is the 29th. Chad Casper and I have connected. There might be some overlap where she might go do a little bit of training with Mary, but then if there's some heavy meeting room days, because that's been one of Jody's primary tasks, then in April may come back and help with that. So we've talked that the position has already been posted, working with HR, so it was posted last Friday. Already have a couple of Stephanie has already let me know that there's a couple of applications. I believe that'll close next Friday or next Thursday, and then we'll be able to review applications and start the screening process. So there will be a very minimal amount of time. The good news is, or at least part of it is, I'm not as, I mean, I have full confidence because both Amy and Ashley have quite a lot of experience in providing meeting room support. So our meeting room users are probably not going to see much of a change. So we'll be able to provide those services while we have a little bit of a gap and bring somebody new on board. The other thing, just related to that, do have a conversation this afternoon with the other department heads in the building, just to overall, and Ethan, to just talk about the county meeting room philosophy. One of the things that we have had is that we've been following the status quo, because we've never really we've just done what has been done. One of the things that we found is that some of the larger, the county groups and county meetings are finding some barriers to scheduling, especially during the daytime hours. So we may have a little bit of a change in focus to make sure that our county departments and county committees and other groups can have trainings and other larger staff meetings. If you think about some of our larger groups, especially here on our end of this camp, the footprint that's up here with all of our departments, there's not a lot of meeting spaces that are big enough for. So other than Expo also has a fee-based structure. That's a revenue generation center, and they're set up for that. So oftentimes they're booked out. So just a conversation that we're having. Status quo might be the answer, or there might be some tweaks. The timing is also such because if there are some changes in that focus or the philosophy that would require or have an opportunity to change the level of staffing we provide that towards the meeting rooms, I think it would have an impact on who we would hire and bring on board. So looking at the position description itself isn't going to change, but if we're looking at those individual responsibilities, we might look at things a little bit differently. So I'll give you an update when that happens. The other piece, the health and well-being educator, the last time I talked with you, the position was open. The application period has closed. We had 21 applicants for the position. There is an asterisk there. I'll go back to the asterisk in a moment. So myself and program managers from the health and well-being program, we did do the screening, and we have 8 individuals that we are going to bring in for a next level of screening. We're still focused on content knowledge because it's like one of those things, the paper material, not paper, but the application materials, they still they're about potential. Now we need to kind of sort through and see, do they have the content knowledge, followed by in-person interviews. And Steve, I want to touch base with you and see if there's any dates. In-person final interviews either the week of April 10th or April 17th. So I want to look to avoid some dates so we can get something that's scheduled. Here's the asterisk. The position is posted for Winnebago County Health and Wellbeing with University of Wisconsin Extension. Does anybody know where the next closest Winnebago County is? Illinois, Roxford, Belvedere area. So we have a number of the candidates have, and we did not exclude them, right? We reviewed them and we invited those that are the most qualified, but we also, the reason 8 would not be the number, I just have a feeling that there are going to be some, once they actually figure out that this is Winnebago County, Wisconsin, that they may withdraw their application. That said, if they are willing to relocate, there are some very high quality candidates. We will welcome them. We will welcome them.
We don't mind stealing Illinois people.
Right. And even with that, there are still a number, there's still a strong pool, even if we remove a couple of those individuals. So there's a lot of individuals that are in various stages of their careers that were interested in this position. So looking forward to doing that next level.
Must be kind of exciting just to have 21 applicants.
It is, and that's the good and the bad, because when you have 6, it's easy to screen 6. It's also depressing to screen 6 once you start thinning the group out. So this is like, okay. And so unlike I know that there are others, our division, and I think most of the University of Wisconsin ads, we don't have any pre-filters. We don't have any bots searching or anything. Our search and screen team reviewed every single applicant with the materials that they provided us with their cover letters or resumes or whatever their supporting materials are. So it does take some time. but it also means that I'm not handed a list that said, hey, here are the ones that we think you should, and I don't know anything about them. I feel like I actually have a little bit of understanding about the candidates because I've read through their materials 2, sometimes 3 or 4 times to make sure how do they meet our qualifications. And in some cases, you use your experience to predict, okay, how would this translate to an extension role, but without bringing your bias or anything like that in, and still giving them a fair and honest review. So so there is, I don't know if you kind of heard, there is some excitement there. I mean, of doing that, and seeing 21 is way better than, 5 or 6, and going, oh, I hope we, do we need to repost this, or do we need to, so. The 4-county regional dairy educator position is now posted. It will, I believe it closes the end of the month. Mandy Dornfeld is the hiring authority on with that position. So we flipped a coin. I won, lost, I don't know. So she is, I will be part of the the screening process and the hiring process. And she's the one who's taking the lead. And we'll keep you up to date once we know how many applicants and what the next steps are. And then another cool, exciting opportunity, and as I had mentioned, as we discussed, we're moving forward working with Dana for a summer LTE, or limited term employment. So Dana's already got a couple of ideas and a couple leads for some individuals that might be interested. So we're working through that process to bring someone on board to provide some additional capacity. So not so that essentially summer is super busy and Sarah's busy and Dana's busy, and if we can do a 2-for-1 and bring in somebody that can help do some of their own programming or provide assistance to both Dana and Sarah, and we can expose an individual to a potential career in extension. That's a win. That's a win-win for all of us. So that's the plan. We'll be sure to let you know once we have an individual. So
whoever gets the position, I've already got their summer book.
Flexibility is the name of the game, right?
The other thing, just to that, it's a little bit of a we now have a deadline prior to Jody accepting the role of land and water. She was assisting with some efforts to, I call it, to make our office bigger without actually adding any walls. She has been was willing to go through and pull those items out of the back of the shelves that haven't seen the light of the day and ask the question, do we need it? Do we want it? Can we recycle it or get rid of it? And so
Does it spark joy?
well, there might be that. It might be, will we ever use this again in any way, shape, or form? And let's get down to what we really need. So she's been doing that, and her target for completion is before she departs is to have most of the things dispersed. She's even done some research, and between her and Chad, our Chad in our office, Chad, why am I blanking on this? Chad Cook. Oh my goodness. Her and Chad have located a company that you basically pack a bunch of stuff in a box with a small fee, and they will properly recycle small electronics, DVDs, things like that would clutter up landfills for centuries. That they have alternate, they're able to recycle them in ways, because that's not like some of those things are not like, hey, this is a number 5 plastic container, we can make sure it gets over to solid waste and they'll turn it into a sweater or a park bench or whatever it might be. So not that they do it there, they don't turn them into sweaters and park benches, but they help get them to the places that do.
They have people.
What?
They got
have
people.
They have people,
They have
yes.
patience.
Yes, they have people, yes. So we're working on that, and it's one of those things that there have been some things like, oh, and I think Dana, you might have found a couple of things like, oh, we could use that now that we know that it's here, okay. And then there's other things where everybody looks and like, yeah, we haven't used that for 10 years. Let's see if there's another department. So we're following, because many of the items were procured through county funds, we're giving other county departments opportunities to purchase, and then they'll be posted on the public auction site, which is the most appropriate way for us to do that. So if there are some items that look at the auction site, and you might see some, if you want some 1950s filing cabinets, there's probably going to be some available.
Right outside my office.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so we're staging things, and we're not putting things back and putting them away. We're staging them because they are intending to exit the building. So that's just an update. I know. It seems right now, it seems a little, I guess we have to create a little bit of mess to generate some cleanliness or some organization in the next few weeks. So that's my update. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
If you whittled a position down to 3 or 4 candidates, you interview them, and for some reason, each one that you issue an offer to, for whatever reason, they turn you down, do you go back to the other 6 or 7 or 10 that you initially passed on just to see, or do you start the whole process all over again?
In our screening, and we did this on Tuesday, so we screened all 21 of the applicants. There essentially were 3 groups. We utilized 3 groups. There was a small group that did not, like I said, we review everyone that submits an application. There were some of them that did not meet the required qualifications. So with that, we can say, nope, they don't meet the minimums. And sometimes you factor in like, hey, they don't even really have anything else. So it's not like, can we do a deep dive and see if, they may meet the minimums, things like that. So we have a little bit of discrepancy there, or flexibility there. The next group was those that meet the minimums, but are not strong in the additional preferred, may not have relevant, a fair amount, or 3 or more years of relevant work experience. They may have work experience, but relevant to the role of the position. So they might have a degree in an appropriate area, but they weren't currently using that degree in a relevant position. And individuals, not all of them, but some of them also tend to be, if they're early career, many cases they're not able to demonstrate some of those pieces. The other thing is, and this is just a side note, and I'll go back, the third group, or finish answering. They're really candidates. If you look at our position, the position vacancy listing, we list our required qualifications and our preferred qualifications in a bulleted list. They're not in like rank priority order, but they're there. In below, there's a statement like, we want to learn more about you. Please ensure that you address the required and preferred qualifications in your application materials that you submit. So one of those things is, with that in mind, if you read it, we don't make the search and screening committee work to guess if you meet those areas, right? And so there was a number of candidates that left way much room for us to have to guess. So we have to say, no, you don't meet those preferred because you didn't tell us. Okay. So then there are the individuals that were like, hey, these are the group that we want to learn more about. I would say that anybody, so we're going to have a final interview, and we're probably going to have 3 to 4 candidates, anywhere between 2 and 4 candidates for the final interview. We're going to take that 8 and get down. Anybody, after the preliminary interview, we will have and know if there is a what I'm going to call a cut line, like nope, or maybe, and if this is the group we want to see in person. We want Steve to meet, we want our office to interact with them, but there's we can go back to those individuals that were like, maybe not. Or the other answer to your question is, we could say, no, these are not gonna work, we would repost the position for another 3 weeks, and then essentially we would start the process. Not completely from scratch, but we would be behind our anticipated target. But, right, the trade-off is do we settle for a candidate that could work, or do we say, nope, let's take the extra time and find and do another search for the right candidate that'll have a better fit?
I know I sat in for when we hired the first director, and they actually had 4 candidates that were very well qualified. And we were split between 2 of them, but then when we started talking a little more, we all agreed on the one we hired, and I think he's doing a great job, you know. I just think it's, when you interview them, either they're gonna fit with your program or they're not. And there was 2 of them there that would fit very well with our program. Well, I think Adam just was more in the programming, and we need to get more programs at the Expo Center so it's utilized more. So I think that's what won him off, you know.
And at every level, Karen, we would have our preferred, and, you know, HR, and we would work with HR and say, okay, if they say no, ask this one next, but then there's the line, if they say no, then come back to me, because then we want to have a further conversation. Or all 4 of these, here's the rank order, go until you get a yes, because they're all great applicants. So those are continual conversations, and they are different for every single search and screen, because you just know, you know, till you get to know them. It's a lot of work, but to me, that's kind of there's a little bit of fun in there. A little bit of, for me in my role, it's a little enjoyment sorting through and trying to find, that right person.
Any other questions?
Timeline, that's what I was thinking of. When you're doing all of these interviews, do you see an end date when you might have that person?
Yes, if everything goes, so one of the things, and the timeline isn't always exactly the same for each position. So for example, this one got posted late because I was sick for a week in early January, and the program manager was sick like the following week. So we weren't able to get the position description finalized to get posted. So we were about a week, almost a week and a half behind when we initially wanted to. We had hoped to have it posted a little bit sooner. The other piece, so for example, we should be okay. I've had a week of vacation on the books for about 9-10 months now. So it's the first week of April. So we're hoping, like, my last before I hop on a plane is to finish up our rankings, communicate with HR so that they can be doing the behind the scenes stuff, and we're not, that whole week isn't a wasted week. So as far as calendars flipping by with no action going on. So hopefully that is the plan, and that should be able to. Timeline, the other piece that is always the wild card. So we're looking at interviews somewhere in that middle part of April. The timeline that the wild card is if we have the right candidates, when are they able to transition? Are they currently employed? Some employers require different amounts, so it could be as much as 3 to 4 weeks. It could be as much as 2 weeks, and it just as fast as HR can get the hiring paperwork done. So that's the wild card. I would say May, the first week of May, if everything clicks perfectly. But before, if we don't have to repost it, the month of May is the plan. That's unless there is the right candidate that needs to, that needs a different, but that's one of the things. If they're the right candidate, we can wait an extra week or two for them. So I do have our HR department has created a spreadsheet that you essentially can plug in. You plug in some knowns and it can give you an estimate of like the earliest start date. So I do have the earliest because it's one of those things. And then you always take that and I move it up a week, because if for some reason everything clicks in the HR system, that is the earliest day they can start. So if you said April 15th was the day that someone would start, but everything clears out and everything, and they're like, oh, we could start on April 1st. Nope, because you said the earliest date was April 15th. So HR, all of the people that they have that in their calendar and their flow of when to make sure that they can provide the high level of service that they normally provide to each of the individuals that they're coming on board. So they can manage their workloads. So, so that was something that I had learned. Thankfully, it didn't affect me, but that one of the HR folks are like, "Are you sure you don't want to move this up?" And then like, "Oh yeah, we can try that." So I think the earliest, if everything would have went perfectly according to plan, I think would have been like that third week of April. So I'm really looking at, we're really not that far off. So I guess I guessed well.
Point of clarification, the HR department you're talking about.
I'm talking about Madison.
is
I'm talking about
Madison,
UW
not
Madison,
Winnebago.
not Winnebago. No, this is a University of Wisconsin Division of Extension.
You don't get tagged up with our
Yes,
department at all.
yes, I do, because we have four county employees.
And they are
So,
underneath the new wage thing?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. So that's where when I was mentioning anything about HR, when in reference to Jody Bazio's position, and that is working with Stephanie, who is the onboarding, hiring and onboarding individual, Mark Havoc. So yes, so I work with both HR teams, and I understand yes, that I use HR interchangeably, and it makes sense in my head, because I know who I'm talking about. But yes, I apologize. for the
No,
confusion.
it's just,
No, yeah,
I'm just trying to get in my head. It's just so many different things, but that's what I'm
Yeah.
finding out about this thing we call government. It's a multi-legged animal. It's almost like a miracle that it works.
So it works out. Takes forever, but it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any more questions. Any announcements for the next county board meeting they'd like us to announce?
I made an announcement for the pizzas, last time, Steve.
I had other announcements to make. I can only make so many.
When we do those things, do we announce that, like, send that to the county clerk, so it could be on a county-wide, so all county employees know about this thing, or is this something, unless you're in extension or hangers on, you don't really know about it? I mean, how do we publicize this? Because I had lunch with Sue Ertler before she retired, and she said, I don't think that we know about this pizza thing. She says, we should be knowing about this, so it can be, the information be dispersed. But are you saying we can't have that many people, that many pizzas ordered?
Well, yeah, many people order pizzas
Yeah,
and we want, but it's like, we just went to the consent agenda because our meetings are too long. And I basically gave my report from the NACO convention. So then I didn't want to talk more than 2 or 3 minutes. So then I asked Tom if he had announced for the pizza sales. And the month before that, I had something else I had to do. So I asked you to make the announcement.
Yeah.
But I already used up my time.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of with 4-H is we've got about 20 spots open for summer camp, kids in grades 3 through 8. Open to anyone, so
So that should be sent to the county clerk's office, so they can announce that?
I don't know, how does
Oh, we can
that
announce it
process work?
Under the committee comments.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
All the
well, the other thought I got
supervisors are
is,
getting this, right?
it should be, yes.
It's all available online as well.
Again,
Need to
you
know
can
that.
lead a horse to water.
Yeah.
You should be getting them in your mail, actually.
I get
so-
mine at home.
Okay,
I just
good.
made
Yeah.
sure I was gonna make that announcement, but I keep forgetting. make sure they get it.
Well,
Comments from the committee.
do we mention about the scholarship again?
Do you want to
When does
mention
that
it?
close,
I can
Karen?
mention it.
March 31st.
So we can.
We announced that at the county board meeting,
Yeah,
but, we've dropped it from this department's agenda because, it got voted down and we didn't get it back up again in time, so we have to wait probably until after elections of April 24.
but we can announce that the scholarship is open for anybody who wants to
Yeah, and we did, I did,
apply for it.
yeah, and you and I had talked about that before the last county board meeting, and we did that.
Yeah.
It
Do
could
we
be,
do it
it could be
again?
announced one more time at the next, but then, that's cutting it close, but yes, we can.
I'm happy to do it unless you want to.
You may do that if you'd like.
All
I
right.
did the last time,
Is the
an
info
extra, an extra
online?
voice.
Is all the info online for it?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely,
perfect.
absolutely, there is.
All right.
And I,
Karen, you can definitely bring that back at budget. Because that's basically the budget for 2024. You can't bring it back as a resolution, but you can bring it back to the budget.
Okay, well, I'll try again.
But
Dana, how are pizza sales going?
I don't know. They have their pizza count tonight, the Leaders Association, so that's when everybody brings in their orders. So I'll know after tonight.
Steve, are you gonna be making pizzas again with them?
I don't ever make, I bought 10, my
April
sister bought
1st.
20, so we got 30 pizzas in my family.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Good
We give them
pizzas.
a little.
I want to get some.
There's an order form, right out on the.
Was it
board out
yesterday,
there.
wasn't it yesterday last take an order?
We can take orders up
Tonight.
until tonight.
Okay,
The online orders, I believe, are shut off. They got
Okay.
shut off.
Yeah, they shut
yesterday.
off March 8th. They're
Yeah.
actually pretty good pizzas, right,
Really?
Steve?
Yeah.
I like them. Any other comments from the committee?
I just, I think I made an announcement here that my district does not have any cows in it. But I just found out 2 weeks ago now that it is now legal to have chickens in Manassas.
I read that on
Did you
Facebook.
see that
Yeah.
now? Evidently, there must be a big movement here because having the chickens hatch in the area, I know their cops were getting ready to raid that area.
yeah.
It's all the schools that Sarah's been in Manassas.
In places.
Yeah, and prices,
It's
yeah.
not legal though, what can I say? It's legal.
Yeah, that's
You
good.
had lots of chicks hatch at the school right near your house a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago.
Any roosters?
Oh, yeah, there's a few, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm sure there are.
They won't let roosters in Nina.
They won't let
They copy
roosters in
the
Manassas.
way.
either.
No,
It was quite controversial. In 2.5 hours, they were debating it. And the mayor had to break the vote.
they don't know roosters in Oshkosh. The chicks that do hatch go to a local project leader per farm, so.
Okay.
You can.
I have a few comments to make. One is from Land and Water that our last meeting was last Thursday and I found it very interesting. Land and Water, I inquired as to whether we had brine up here or beet juice. And what I learned was that beet juice freezes at a higher temperature than brine does. And that our brine is 5% salt and 95% water. So I was curious about that as I looked down the road to see these stripes in the wintertime. So I thought that was very interesting. Another thing is, again, through Land and Water, one of their catalogs or magazines that they send out was talking about whitey tidies. And if you in fact bury 100% cotton underwear, in 3 months, it will have disintegrated.
You gotta come up
The
with plastic.
elastic would not
Yeah.
have disappeared, but the cotton would have been biodegradable. So I am going to be trying that, and it actually showed a picture in this.
I want to be there when you bury your underwear. Film at 11.
So there are two things. I'm involved in a group called Damascus Road, which is sex trafficking, and they are based here in Oshkosh, and they're having difficulty with their trafficked people being able to find housing as well. And Chris, you had mentioned COTS. I know that I've got a girlfriend who's actively involved in COTS. And she said, make sure that they reach out to us to get the housing potentially that they need. So that's somewhere else that for the Parkview might be approachable. Then, of course, there's the Joseph Project as far as getting incarcerated people, felons, employed, and they actually have that down in, they've opened up in several areas, Green Bay, Milwaukee, and in Milwaukee, they get bused up to Sheboygan each day for all 3 shifts. I think La Crosse and Madison have Joseph projects going on. And then finally, I received something interesting about a fella called Joshua Glover, who is an escaped slave who ended up coming into Wisconsin and was free for like 2 or 3 years. And then with that Fugitive Slave Act in 1850, he was recaptured and put in jail down in Milwaukee. And down there, they have got a plaque on one of the overpasses. Underneath the overpass, they've got a plaque to Joseph Glover. Excuse me, Joshua Glover. And I just wanted to say, hey guys, this is an abolitionist state. We had the Underground Railroad here. We're pretty hot stuff.
Yeah, there was an Underground Railroad in Pickett,
Yes,
Jasper Pickett.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, I tend to think of the Underground Railroad being on the East Coast and going up into New York and stuff like that. Eventually, he did get up to Canada, this Joshua Glover did. You know, it's kind of exciting to know that we are an abolitionist state. So I'm done now.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, the next meeting date would be April 20th. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So be it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
What? Did you?
Just one, I want, I.
Oh.